and welcome to another video. This is my platform where I turn struggling math students into maths masters. So subscribe, turn on the notification button if you want to be one. So I am very excited about this video. I call this video Taxation 2.0 because it is an extension of my first video that I did on taxation. And what I did was I looked at your questions and I tried to see, okay, what are you guys asking that maybe I didn't make clear enough in the video? Or what are you guys asking that I maybe didn't include in the video? And so I've based off of what you guys have asked and I've looked at the recent exam papers, I decided I would then do another taxation video. So here it is. Hopefully you find it helpful. And yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so the way I've set out this lesson is that in the first slide, I'm going to teach you the entire process of taxation from start to finish. And you'll see that I've divided it into three distinct parts. Now, in an exam situation, they will literally ask you any one of the three. They never, or I haven't seen them ever ask all three steps. But I want to teach you all three of them and how they interlink with each other so that no matter what they ask you, you are able to answer it. Okay? And so I'm going to give you an explanation and then we're going to work through an example. And I'm going to then take what I've explained and then lay out the three different parts. And then I'm going to actually apply it to the exam or to the example. Okay? And then right at the end, I've added a bonus question, which is a question that has come through from a lot of you. And it is really a question that I also grappled with in the beginning. And yeah, so I want to share with you, if you get a question like that, how you would answer that. So that's the structure of this video. Okay, so let's start by looking at taxation. So we're going to start off by looking at it from two different perspectives. One, we have the individual. This is the person who will be paying the tax. And then SARS, which is the institution who will be receiving the tax. Okay, now let's look at the person who's working. Their gross monthly income is the income that they signed upon when they signed the contract to work there. So this would include their basic salary and then any overtime that they do or transport allowances, all of that's involved with the income that they receive will form part of their monthly gross income. Now again, I'm emphasizing this is what they earn per month. Okay? So that's your starting point. Then from this, generally what you earn determines what you're going to pay for tax. But there are certain non-taxable deductions that you are allowed to take off from your gross income before you calculate your total for your tax. Okay, and those include pension, donations, and these are generally mentioned in your exam. So don't assume, if they don't say anything, you don't have to include them. Okay, so what are the non-taxable deductions? So if you are paying pension fund, right, 7.5% of your gross monthly income is what they are willing to deduct off from your gross income before paying tax, as well as if you made any donations to registered charities, that would also be deducted here. Obviously, there's a maximum. So when I say capped here, this cap just means that they'll give you a deduction up until a certain point. Okay, so now we've got what somebody earns and we take off the non-taxable deductions and this leaves us with the taxable income. Okay, so the taxable income is actually the total that will be taxed on. That's why it's called taxable income. Okay, so this is your first part of the process, is understanding that you have a gross income, you take off the non-taxable deductions, making sure that you pay attention to what are the maximum. So if the pension fund, the maximum will be 7.5% of your gross income, and then with charities, they will give you what the maximum is. These again will be mentioned in the exam, and you end up with your taxable income, your monthly taxable income. Okay, so that's step one. Now, in order to calculate the tax part, right, you're going to take the monthly taxable income and you are going to multiply it by 12. This will then give you the annual taxable income, right? And your annual taxable income is what determines the amount of tax that you're going to pay for that year, right? So take note, I am now working from an annual perspective. So we then have our taxable income, we multiply by 12, gives us our annual taxable income, which moves us over to the SARS section, where we will actually calculate our tax. So this is where we look at the tax bracket, we look at the tax table, what is the tax bracket that our total income falls under, then we calculate the annual tax. Once we've calculated the annual tax, we take off the rebates, which is based on the person's age, and we take off the medical credits based on whether or not they have medical aid. Once we've subtracted that, we actually end up with our annual tax payable to SARS, right? And then we would divide it by 12 to calculate what this person needs to pay per month. So this on the right now acts as your second part of your taxation calculation, right? Because now your tax is calculated on the year's earnings, and then based off of the year's earnings, you will then find what is the tax bracket, the usual, what is the tax bracket. Once you've calculated and filed the tax with you actually calculate the tax, and then you subtract the rebates, medical as well as the taxable rebates, right? Then you end up with your annual tax payable to SARS. So this amount at the end of this process on the right is what do you owe SARS for the entire 12 months based on your taxable income. Okay, there we go. We've now calculated our annual. Now let's go back to the individual, because the last part is actually trying to find out what is this person actually going to get in their pocket once all the deductions are taken into consideration. So what is their net income, right? So we'll start again with our monthly gross income, which is the exact same monthly gross income over here, right? Then we are now going to look at all the deductions, right? So we are now trying to calculate. So the first part, let me just make the distinction. The first part, you are using the monthly gross income to actually calculate the taxable income, so you can find out how much tax they need to pay. But now that you have how much tax they need to pay, you then can actually calculate what the take-home pay is. And the way you will do that is you'll look, okay, this is my monthly gross income, and you will take off all your deductions. PAYE is pay as you earn, which is also known as your tax. Right, this is now going to be your calculation based off of the annual tax payable, right? So you've now calculated the annual, you divide it by 12, and you find out what is your monthly, and this is what will take place. This will what will be on the salary slip, okay? Then we have the UIF, which is then calculated at 1% of the monthly gross income. We also have the pension, which will be given, and then we have the medical aid, which will be given, and whatever other deductions. Please take note here, this pension is actually what they pay per month toward their pension, but the pension at the top here is just the value that they get that's discounted, so that they can actually calculate the taxable income that they get because they actually have pension. Okay, so the government is sort of creating an incentive for you to make sure that you have pension, because they'll say, okay, if you have pension, you end up having to pay less tax. Okay, so over here now we have the actual deductions, right? And then once we take our monthly income and we subtract our deductions, then we end up with a net income, or we can call that our take-home pay. So this is the entire process of tax. Okay, so what they will do, if, for example, is they might give you the annual taxable income and ask you to calculate the tax. And that means they've done all this, the entire first part already for you, and they just want you to step in and do the second part. Right? You see here's the annual taxable income. Or they'll tell you what the tax is, or they'll ask you to calculate the tax and then calculate the take-home pay, which means you only have to do the second part and the third part. right? So the way I want you to memorize this, I want you to see this as your first part of the explanation, and this one as your second, and this as your third, and realize that they can literally ask you any one. I've still to see an exam where they include all three. I don't think you can expect all three, because there's just too many mistakes that you can make. If you miss out something in step 1, then you end up losing marks in step 2 or step 3. So generally, they will ask you questions where you don't need to do all three. But if you know all three, then no matter what they give you, you'll be able to answer. Okay, so now let's do an example. Right? And my example I'm giving you requires you to do all three. So I'm just showing this to you as a way for you to see how all three is actually calculated. But note that they obviously are going to ask certain parts of this. Okay, so the instruction says, Jeremy, a 38-year-old, earns a gross basic monthly salary of 48,563.75. He earns an extra 800 Rand per month for overtime. He contributes 3,980 towards his pension fund monthly. 7.5% is non-taxable. Jeremy contributes 5,250 per month toward medical aid for himself, his wife, and his son. He also makes an UIF contribution. Calculate his net income. So they want us to calculate what is his take-home pay after all his deductions. So what is the actual amount that's going to be paid into his bank account? Okay, so we're going to start by step 1, calculating his taxable income. Right, so first we start with what is his gross income. Right, his gross income is the 48,563.75 plus the overtime. Right, remember it's all of his income. This gives us then 49,363.75. Now, we also said that we have a pension deduction, okay, which is 7.5% of the gross income. So this is what will be deducted, right? This isn't being paid to his pension fund. This is being deducted. And so 7.5% is then 3,702.28. So this is the discount he gets from his taxable income. Okay? Take note though that what he contributes towards the pension, he gives the pension fund 3,980, but we are only capped at maximum 7.5% is what we can allow to deduct in order to calculate our taxable income. Okay, so now to calculate the taxable income, we'll say gross income minus the non-taxable deductions, which is then 45,661.47. This is now the amount that he's going to be taxed on. Okay? Right. So let's move to the second part. Same question. We now know what Jeremy has, his taxable income is per month. Now we want to calculate his tax, right? So step 2 says we calculate the tax. So we're going to calculate his annual tax contribution. So what is this going to look like? First, we calculate his annual salary. So that means we're taking the 45,661.47, which is what we calculated at the end of step number 1, and multiplied by 12 to find out what does he earn per year. This then tells us in which bracket he will be paying tax. So this 547,937.64. So this falls in the last tax bracket over here, right? So now that we know the tax bracket, we then actually apply the tax rate on the right. So this will give me 100,263 plus 36% of the actual earnings minus the value that's given in the table. Okay, so that will then give us a total tax payment of 145,132 and 55. Okay, so let's just quickly recap. We calculated what was his monthly taxable income. Then we multiplied it by 12 to find his annual. Now that we have the annual tells us what we actually must go get from the tax table. This is then the tax calculation. You then put in the values and then you actually find out what is the tax. But now remember, we still have to take off the rebate as well as the medical credits, right? So if I look at the tables here, he is 38 years old, so he only is eligible for the primary rebate. If he was 65 or older, you would have qualified for both rebates. The third one, he would then be qualified. If he was older than 75, he would qualify for all three. But he's only 38, so he falls under primary. So we are going to deduct the 14,067. Then let's look at the medical aid. It says here that he pays medical aid for himself. So he is the first contributor. Then for the first dependent, which is his wife, it's another 310. And then additional, which is his child, is 209. Now I want you to pay attention, and these values given is per month. And our entire calculations here in step 2 is annual. So we need to then take this calculation, which is per month, and this together for what he needs to pay per month, and then take that answer and multiply it by 12, so that we are doing all the calculations with the annual. So this is the annual tax, this is the annual rebate, and then this would be your annual credits. Okay, so just like we work with measurement, we can never add and subtract a measurement 1 millimeter to 5 centimeters. You have to convert both of the units to the same unit before you can add. It's the same when you're dealing with taxation. You can't do calculations with some of the values is the annual and some of the values is the monthly. You literally have to convert all of them to annual or all of them to monthly. Right, so then our final answer there, we are subtracting our, sorry, I say I doubled up here, but we are subtracting the rebate and we end up with 121, 117 and 55 cents. This is now his annual tax that he needs to pay for the whole year. Okay, now remember the question wants us to calculate his net income. So what is his income after he goes home? And we needed what is his income that he takes home at the end of all of these deductions? So we've now calculated step 2, actually just calculate what is the value of his tax that's going to be deducted from his salary. Now we can actually move to step 3 where we actually calculate his net income. So remember, again, I'm dividing this into 3. You can see how all of them work together, but in certain questions, they'll only grab certain parts. But if you know the whole process, then it doesn't matter what they ask. So it says calculate his net income. So now we know, okay, this is his gross income, right? This was his basic salary plus his overtime. Then the deductions, we have his tax, which we calculated in the previous section, divided by 12, because we're working with monthly now. This is his monthly gross income. And then I end up with a 10,093 and 13 cents. Then for UIF, it's 1% of, again, his gross income, and this is his value per month. Medical aid, we get that from the information in the question. And then his pension amount, which we also got from the information in the question, which is 3,980. So in order now to calculate his take-home, his net income, we would then take his gross income minus his tax, minus his UIF, minus his medical aid, minus his pension, and obviously whatever other information they give you in the question, right? So in this case, there was nothing else. This is all that they included. And that means that his take-home salary per month, which is the amount he actually gets paid into his account, will be 29,546 and 98 cents. Okay, so when we first go back before we go on. So I want you to see that these questions, you look at, we first calculate how do we find the taxable income. So that's the gross income minus the deductions, right? The non-taxable deductions. Then it gives us our taxable income. Then we move over to calculating the tax by multiplying the taxable income by 12, using the tables accordingly to find the actual tax value. Then to find his take-home pay, you then take that tax value divided by 12, that will give you his monthly tax payment. Then you take all the other deductions from that gross income, and it will give you his take-home pay. Okay, so that is the entire process of taxation. Now, I want to give you the bonus question, which is the question I mentioned in the beginning of the video, or the beginning of this lesson, where a lot of sometimes they ask you questions that are out of the ordinary. Okay, and this is one of them. And I want to show you how you would have answered this question. Okay, so this question says, show how the value of 100,263 in tax bracket 4 is calculated. So this is this value over here. Okay, now it's if you're not shown how to do this, this is a very difficult thing to actually figure out. But the way you would do this, to find these values, the start value, you always take the previous bracket, right? So I'm taking 63853, which I got from the previous tax bracket, and I work out the tax as if this maximum amount was the taxable income. So I would say this 31% times this value minus this value, and it then gives us the next bracket's start value. Okay, so again, I'll say this value plus 31% of this value in the same bracket minus this, and it's always the bracket before the value that they're actually asking. And then simplified, you will see that you will get that 100,263. Okay, so that is how you will handle, and that is how I want you to understand the taxation section, and this is how you would handle a question like this. All right, so there's that video. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you have any questions, you can add it in the comment section below. If you're interested in joining any of my revision online lessons, you can email maxmonkeyhelp@gmail.com and I'll send you all the information on that. All right, so thank you for making it through another video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.